Cabo de Gata on the south coast of Spain. We're about 100 miles from Gibraltar at the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea and headed for the Balearics.
I wanted to break away to see the world.
I longed for excitement, the romance of travel.
So we built a boat.
And now we travel the oceans. Join us as we voyage to distant shores.
We're just rounded Cabo de Gata. This is the point where the Mediterranean Sea widens out, and because of that there's quite a lot of current around the entrance. We're about 100 miles past Gibraltar and another 100 or so on to the east, and we'll get to the Balearic Islands.
On this voyage, we leave Spain's Costa del Sol behind and explore ports along the mountainous Costa Blanca. At Calpe, we'll cross over to the hedonistic Balearic Islands for more sun and fun. On this first leg, after rounding Cabo de Gata, we'll anchor at San Jose and the remote Cala de San Pedro. Then we'll visit the historic ports of Aguilas and next Cartagena, where a 2,000-year-old Roman theater has recently been discovered.
After passing the Cape, we enter a majestic landscape of rising rocks and shifted layers of limestone, granite, and shale. Paul and I have heard so much about this coast from other sailors, and now we're here with our own boat, seeing it for ourselves. Eons ago, as the Earth's crust cooled, it shrank, and to accommodate the smaller size, the crust folded and rose, forming rippling hills and mountains all around the western Mediterranean. From sea, we're treated to a magical view not visible from land, the exposed rock layers along the coast, bright limestone encased in dark igneous rock.
You see the white reflected in the sea from that incredible mark.
What a magical finish to this perfect day. We've rounded Cabo de Gata, now we're anchored in San Jose. What a Mediterranean night. The Costa Blanca, or White Coast, is named for the dazzling white light that reflects from the dry rocky hills and sandy terrain. This area receives less than 14 inches of rain a year, so we're counting on lots of good weather on this trip.
Sheryl and I have been looking forward to this leg of our journey into the Mediterranean Sea. The wild natural landscape of the Costa Blanca is such a contrast to the busy resort towns we found along the south coast. At Almerimar, with the snow-capped Sierra Nevadas in the distance, we escaped the crowds and found a good marina to haul the boat for a seasonal refit.
Once a year, we haul two-step out of the water to check the hull and reapply anti-fouling paint. It's also a good time to update equipment and brighten up the woodwork.
Two-step is 37 feet long and weighs over 9 tons. She has a fiberglass hull with a full heavy keel, which makes her track well in big seas. Sheryl and I built her ourselves and sailed her to Europe across the Atlantic from Canada. Since high school, it's been our dream to travel the world in a sailboat.
At Cala San Pedro, we get our first exposure to the back-to-nature lifestyle of the Costa Blanca when we discover that some of the beaches are clothing optional.
Wow, this coast is so much more natural than the developments around Almerimar and the southern coast. We came in here this morning attracted by this rock amphitheater and the incredible castle behind us. When we came in though, it was all a little bit cloudy and kind of cold. Now the natural inhabitants have come out. It looks like there isn't even a road into this place, just a path along the mountain edge. So some people have moved in here. Some are living in caves, incredibly, and in tents along the edge just to be at this colony here. What we have here are nudist cave dwellers living in paradise.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, you see somebody in the nude and they look perfectly natural. You just don't worry about it after a while. You obviously look, but you know, you've seen it and you've seen it all before, so you don't worry about it. I think it's quite nice. You certainly feel very free.
I'm not that brave, so I didn't try it.
How about you?
Yes, you can feel free. It's if you want to do it, you do it. If you want to go the other way, it's okay. Everything is okay here. So that's what I like.
My mate Sheryl, a good North American girl, feels a little shy about going au naturel, but I figure, when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Well, our historical cruise is off to a surprising start. I hadn't expected to see cavemen on this trip. Well, that's the great thing about cruising. Who knows what lies ahead?
Ready to tack, Cher?
Ready?
Tacking! Our next port, Aguilas, was once an important Roman mining town, which fell into disuse centuries ago after repeated invasions by pirates.
That's 60 feet, Paul. Okay, it's set.
All right.
In 1765, the harbour and village were rebuilt and the castle of San Juan restored. Tomorrow we'll move into the marina in town, but for this evening we'll sleep at anchor and dream of ancient times. We're at the dock in Aguilas on the southeast coast of Spain. When we came in here, we dropped our 2 bow lines over the bollards here, and then picked up this tracer line, which allows you to pull the big stern line off of the bottom. Most harbours have a built-in anchor system to hold all of the boats instead of the tangle when everyone drops their own anchor. Today's project is to make up the standard mooring lines that most sailors use around the Med. Many of the small harbours have swell, and the idea is to absorb it. Because the boat's lines normally wouldn't have that much stretch, we're going to add some by putting some springs in. First a length of chain, then this special spring you can buy here, then your mooring line with an eye spliced into it, and a chafe guard where it comes on board. I just need to cut a 5-foot length of chain to slip over the bollard. This will take the chafe as the line goes over the dock and help to absorb some of the surge as well. Why am I using this little hacksaw, you ask? Well, I have a very nice 110-volt grinder, but it's built for the American power system and won't work over here where it's 220. In fact, most of the world is 220 volts, so if you plan on cruising abroad, it might not be a bad idea to get an inverter decent size so you can run your tools. Okay, I have my chain cut, shackled it into a loop, and spliced the thimble here, to the end of my dock line. But the little fisherman's supply store here was out of the springs, so that's cruising. Basically, we've got the job mostly done. When we get the spring, we can finish it up. But for now, the chain is absorbing some of the shock in the line and also protecting the line against the chafe on the dock. Are you interested in the cruising lifestyle? Are you planning to sail away on a cruising adventure? Or researching cruising areas and destinations? Distant Shores is a television series about the cruising life, with lots of tips for sailors planning to sail away.
This is Oswego, New York. We are entering the Erie Canal system, and this will take us all the way from Lake Ontario to the Hudson River, which gets us to New York City.
Plus destination information to help you make your cruising plans.
Yeah, I can stand on the bottom.
We've been filming Distant Shores for nearly 15 years and know the fun and challenges of the cruising life. We've made Distant Shores with you in mind. We include plenty of cruising tips in this travel series, as well as lifestyle segments and hints for sailors heading to exotic destinations. Encouragement for you and your crew to get out cruising. Destinations include the Intracoastal Waterway, the Bahamas, Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Scandinavia, transatlantic passage making, the French canals, and more.
Tea will be ready in a minute.
Well, the wind is light and fluky, so we've decided to motor the rest of the way in. I think, can you hear that thunder in the background? There's thunder all around. It isn't really always sunny on the south coast of Spain. We're just entering the port at Cartagena. This amazing natural harbor has been in use since 243 BC, when its strategic importance was recognized by the Carthaginians, hence the name Cartagena. It became the center of Carthaginian influence in Europe, and Hannibal used it as a base for his famous expedition across the Alps.
Once we're in the harbor, we can see why Cartagena has been a desirable port throughout the ages. The numerous inner bays and high surrounding hilltops provide protection from the elements and invaders. The resources of wood and minerals made it a good center for shipbuilding, which continues today. Cartagena has remained an important naval base for Spain, as well as a base for commercial fishing, so there are boats of all shapes and sizes in the harbor. And right in the heart of this fascinating city is an excellent marina that welcomes recreational boaters like us. Buried in the hillside, only meters from the port, this ancient Roman theater was discovered quite by accident in only 1987. The commemorative inscriptions reveal that this 6,000-seat theater was built in the early 1st century BC for the adopted children of Augustus. Now there is a dilemma for archaeologists and politicians, since the ruins lie beneath the site of the 13th century cathedral. In fact, now it's obvious that the walls of the cathedral were built using blocks from the old theater. Stranger still is that shortly before the Roman theater was discovered, a modern outdoor theater similar in shape was built in the same location. From Cartagena, we'll travel along the Costa Blanca to Calpe, where we'll head offshore for a passage to the Balearic Islands.
We were looking forward to a nice sail to Calpe, but there's no wind for sailing, so we're a powerboat today. Windless days are common on the Mediterranean Sea. The saying goes, you either get too much wind or not enough in the Med. Sailors are hard to please. Ancient mariners used to rely on teams of slaves to row their ships on days like these. We rely on our 28 horsepower diesel engine.
By late afternoon, we approached Calpe, whose history dates back to the Phoenicians. The incredible cliff that marks this headland, the Peñón de Ifach, is a constant challenge to rock climbers and hikers, and we're no exception. We'll anchor for the night, then tomorrow dig out our hiking boots and see if we can make it to the top. It's 332 meters to the summit and pretty rough going over the slippery rocky trail, but the spectacular views of the Calpe coast and dramatic mountain ranges beyond is worth the effort. However, we've been warned of another danger besides falling on the precipitous path: angry seagulls.
Looks like a lot of birds live here. Smells like a lot of birds live here too.
Don't worry, Mum. It's nesting season on Mount Ifach, so you have to be pretty careful of these seagull nests.
We've been waiting for wind to set sail for the Balearic Islands, and now we've got some. Sort of north-northeast, kind of close haul, but it should be a good sail today.
But when we get into open water, we're nose into an old swell. The motion is terrible, so after an hour of slogging, we turn back.
Well, we decided to turn back to Calpe. The wind out of the north was not bad. It was actually pretty good sailing. But there was quite a big head sea from the east. So with that confusion of the two, it just kept knocking our speed right down. So we were only making about 4 knots. We wouldn't have got in till after dark. That's not really safe. Plus my mate wasn't enjoying the motion out here, so we've turned back. We'll see if we can get a nice anchorage for the rest of the day.
It's always a difficult decision to return to port once you've set out for your next destination, and I know it was difficult for Paul today. But we're both committed to making our time at sea a pleasant experience for each other, and I think that's why we've been sailing together for so long. So, instead of bashing against the wind and the waves, we're spending a quiet afternoon in a beautiful place, and tomorrow should bring better conditions. Then we'll have a lovely sail from Calpe to the Balearic Islands. The next day we get nice winds, and since the sea has flattened out, we make a fast 60-mile passage to Isla Espalmador in the Balearic Islands.
In the 1st century BC, the Greek writer Diodorus wrote that the natives of these islands wore few clothes, and he called them gymnetes, or the naked men. The islands were known as gymnasia, or the islands of naked men. The tradition lives on, especially here in Formentera, where nudism is accepted on all the beaches. So what do you do if you find yourself on a topless or nudist beach?
How do you get started?
Since I'm feeling a little shy, we picked a quiet beach.
And early morning, so sunburn on those sensitive areas isn't so much of a problem.
Well, now I've done it. Lived the fantasy and ran naked on a beach. What will my mother say? But the sensual pleasures of these islands don't end here, as we and fellow cruisers are about to discover.
One of the other boaters has told us that there's a mud bath back in the woods that is supposed to have healing properties. So a few of us are going to go back and see what it's like out there.
The directions we've been given are to walk through the dunes for about 5 minutes, searching for a lonely palm tree on the horizon. When we spot it, we find it overlooks a large natural salt pond, surrounded by thick, gooey mud. Throughout the salt pond, there are little pools of muddy water covered in crusty skins of crystallized salt, formed by evaporation in the hot Spanish sun. Well, we found the mud baths, and for maximum benefit, you're supposed to dunk your whole body in.
Hard to imagine that that's very healing, but I guess we're going to give it a try.
Oh, be careful, don't fall in. Is it warm?
Yeah, it's really warm. It's only 4 inches deep.
Yeah.
But then you go down another foot, it's all mud. So there's no shortage of mud in any of these places, I think. The others seem doubtful, so I decide to take the required full-body plunge first and hope the rest follow suit. But there still seems to be a lack of enthusiasm. But just as we're about to jump in the mud, we're stopped in our tracks by an astonishing sight. The creature from the Black Lagoon, Bigfoot, whatever or whoever he is, he's made of mud and coming right for us.
Hi.
Hi.
It's better up there.
Is it?
Well, it's a bit more gritty there.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll try that. Thank you. Well, this is a little unusual. A polite conversation with a naked, muddy stranger who we're now following into the wilderness. But we believe him when he says he knows where the good mud baths are. Besides, cruising is all about being open to new experiences, and this is definitely a new one. By the time Annette and the boys and I catch up, the rest of the party have lost their inhibitions and have jumped in the mud.
This is cruising, this is great fun.
I'll let you after this.
Yes, I love it.
So much salt in it.
There's crystals right in it, as if but you'd think they had the
I'm glad I'm not in it.
Very sensual.
Is that what you think, Tom?
Well, it's definitely a sense.
Now, unfortunately, we have to walk a quarter of a mile back through the brush to get to the beach. Well, now we're drying out. You're supposed to let the mud dry totally on your skin before you go in the water and wash it all off. I reckon we saved about $1,000 on a health spa. But as we're drying in the sun, enjoying this newfound hedonism, an unexpected thing happens. A boatload of camera-wielding tourists arrives. Time for a decision, and it's mutual. Traveling can take you to fabulous places, and into sometimes strange, but usually fun situations. Uh-oh, now where did Sheryl put my clothes? Are you interested in the cruising lifestyle? Are you planning to sail away on a cruising adventure? Or researching cruising areas and destinations? Distant Shores is a television series about the cruising life, with lots of tips for sailors planning to sail away.
This is Oswego, New York. We are entering the Erie Canal system, and this will take us all the way from Lake Ontario to the Hudson River, which gets us to New York City.
Plus destination information to help you make your cruising plans.
I can stand on the bottom.
We've been filming Distant Shores for nearly 15 years and know the fun and challenges of the cruising life. We've made Distant Shores with you in mind. We include plenty of cruising tips in this travel series, as well as lifestyle segments and hints for sailors heading to exotic destinations. Encouragement for you and your crew to get out cruising. Destinations include the Intracoastal Waterway, the Bahamas, Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Scandinavia, transatlantic passage making, the French canals, and more.